Hello, today my team and I will talk about oligopoly. But first of all, how do we define an oligopoly? An oligopoly is a market structure characterized by a small number of large firms controlling a significant portion of the market share. These firms are interdependent, meaning their actions, such as pricing decisions and output levels, significantly impact each other's profits. This video explores the key features of oligopolistic markets and presents important data highlighting their prevalence and impact on various industries.
So, what are the characteristics of oligopoly? There are four specific characteristics that oligopoly has to align with, which are limited number of firms, high market concentrations, interdependency, and lastly, strategic behavior.
Limited number of firms means that the defining feature of an oligopoly is the presence of small number of dominant firms. This typically ranges between 2 to 10, but the exact number can vary depending on the specific industry and the regulatory environment.
The high market concentrations mean the oligopolistic markets will exhibit high levels of market concentration due to the limited number of players. This means that the small group of firms control a substantial share of the total market output.
The meaning of interdependence in oligopoly means the oligopolistic firms are highly interdependent, that the decisions made by one firm have a significant impact on the profits and market share of other firms in the industry. This interdependence creates a complex strategic environment where firms must carefully consider the potential reactions of their rivals.
Finally, for strategic behavior means that the oligopolistic firms engage in strategic behavior to maximize their profits. This can involve various tactics such as price wars, product differentiation, advertising campaigns, and even collusive agreements.
The next thing we should know about oligopoly is that there are four specific features that we would like to mention. These are the global market share, the industry concentration, profits, and competition, and finally, conclusion and antitrust concerns.
Firstly, about the global market share. According to a 2020 study by the OECD, the top 10 firms in 24 out of 34 industry are accounted for more than 50% of their global market share.
Then, the industry concentration means the level of industry concentration vary across different sectors. For example, in the telecommunication industry, the top four firms globally control over 70% of the market share. In the automobile industry, the top five firms account for approximately 50% of the global market share.
Regarding profits and competition, a 2019 study by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development found that oligopolistic firms tend to enjoy higher profits than firms in other market structures. This is likely due to the reduced competition and the ability to influence market prices.
Last but not least, collusion and antitrust concerns. Collusion, where firms agree to restrict competition and artificially raise prices, is a significant concern in oligopolistic markets. Antitrust laws and regulatory bodies aim to prevent collusion and ensure fair competition in these industries.
Also, there are laws against oligopoly in Mexico and worldwide. There are several antitrust acts which were proposed by Senator John Sherman of Ohio. It was the first federal legislation to address the antitrust concerns in 1890.
To counter-arrest oligopolies, there are two prohibitions. The first one prohibits contracts, combinations, and conspiracies in restraint of trade. This includes agreement among competitors to fix prices, limit production, or allocate markets, which could harm competition.
And for the second one is to prohibit monopolization, or attempts to monopolize any part of interstate commerce. This section is aimed at preventing the undue concentration of economic power in the hands of a single entity. The enforcement of this law is by both the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission. Private parties can also bring lawsuits for antitrust violations.
However, over the years, additional antitrust laws have been enacted, including the Clayton Antitrust Act and the Federal Trade Commission Act. To further address antitrust concerns, and strengthen enforcement. Finally, in terms of the impact of the Sherman Antitrust Act, has played a crucial role in shaping the competitive landscape in the United States. It has been used in numerous high-profile cases to address anti-competitive behavior and protect consumers and competitors.
There is also another law called the Clayton Antitrust Act. It's another significant piece of legislation in the United States that complements and expands upon the Sherman Antitrust Act. Enacted on 1914, the Clayton Act addresses various issues related to anti-competitive behavior, monopolies, and unfair business practices.
Here are the key features of the Clayton Antitrust Act. To propose an enactment of this law was enacted to enhance and clarify the existing antitrust laws, particularly the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890s. It sought to strengthen the government's ability to prevent anti-competitive practices and promote fair competition in the marketplace.
The Act provides certain exemptions for labor unions and agricultural organizations, recognizing the importance of collective bargaining and cooperative efforts in these sectors.
And one notable feature of the Clayton Act is that it provides a private right of action for individuals who are injured by antitrust violations. This means that individuals or businesses harmed by anti-competitive practices have the right to sue for damages.
The relationship between the law that we mentioned just now where actually works as a construction to the other antitrust law in order to create a comprehensive framework for addressing anti-competitive behavior and to promote fair competitions.
And the same year the Clayton Act was enacted, the Federal Trade Commission Act was also passed, establishing the FTC as an independent agency to enforce antitrust laws and to protect consumers from unfair business practices.
The Clayton Antitrust Act, together with other antitrust laws, has played a crucial role in the shaping competition policy in the United States. It has been amended and supplemented by subsequent legislation, and its provisions continue to be important in regulating business conduct and preserving competitive markets.
Shall we also mention the Law Federal Trade Commission in Mexico? Mexico has a strong legal framework to combat illegal policies and promote competition in the markets. The federal law on economic competition is the primary legislation that governs competition matters in Mexico.
The LFCE prohibits anti-competitive practices such as pricing fixing, cartels, and abuse of dominance. It also established the Federal Economic Competition Commission, an independent agency responsible for enforcing the LFC and investigating anti-competitive conduct.
The key provisions of the LFCE Act that addresses oligopolies include prohibition of anti-competitive agreements, prohibition of abuse of dominance, and merger control.
The LFCE prohibits agreements between companies that are intended to restrict competition or harm consumers. This includes agreements to fix prices, divide markets, or boycott certain customers or suppliers.
The LFCE then requires companies to notify the COFECE of mergers and acquisitions that could have a substantial impact on the competition in Mexico. COFECE will review the proposed transaction and will block it if that finds it lead to significant decrease in the competition.
COFECE has a number of enforcement tools at its disposal to combat oligopolies, including investigations, remedial orders, criminal penalties, which investigations means COFECE can investigate suspected anti-competitive conduct and impose fines on companies that are found to be in violation of the LFCE.
And remedial orders means that COFECE can issue remedial orders to companies that have engaged in anti-competitive conduct, requiring them to take corrective action to restore competition. By the end of the criminal penalties means, in some cases, anti-competitive conduct may be considered a criminal offense under the LFCE.
As a result of the LFCE and COFECE's enforcement efforts, Mexico has made significant progress in promoting competition and combating oligopolies. However, oligopolies continue to pose a challenge to competition in some sectors of the Mexican economy. COFECE continues to monitor markets closely and take action against companies that engage in anti-competitive conduct.
The existence of an oligopoly has significant implications for both consumers and policymakers. On the other hand, oligopolistic firms may engage in practices that harm consumers, such as charging higher prices or reducing product quality. On the other hand, oligopolistic markets can also lead to innovation and efficiency gains. Understanding the characteristics and dynamics of oligopoly is crucial for designing effective economic policies and promoting a healthy competitive environment.
To conclude this video, oligopoly is a complex and dynamic market structure with significant implications for various stakeholders. While it can lead to innovation and efficiency, it also raises concerns about market power, concentration, and potential anti-competitive behavior. Understanding the hard data and key features of oligopolistic markets is essential for policymakers, businesses, and consumers to navigate this challenging landscape and create a fairer and more competitive economic environment.